You see, they think they know you. They think they can read you, predict you, even outmaneuver you. But here's the thing, they are always wrong. Always. Because while they stumble, fumbling through the chaos of their own overconfidence, you are moving in silence. You're observing, waiting, calculating, not the way they imagine it, with flashy movements and loud declarations, but with a quiet, lethal precision that doesn't announce itself until it lands. And when it lands, oh, it lands. Every decision, every move, every choice hits like a masterstroke. And the ones who watch from the shadows, your admirers, your rivals, your haters, they all take notes. They're scribbling, trying to catch up, trying to reverse engineer what they cannot comprehend. They envy your courage, not because it's flashy, not because it's loud, but because it's unshakable. You do not hesitate. You do not second guess. Every choice has weight. Every reaction has intent. And while they dither, paralyzed by uncertainty, you glide past, effortless, untouchable. They will call it genius. They will call it luck. But it is neither. It is method. It is control. It is the cold understanding that the world bends only to those who wield their presence like a weapon. And you, oh, you wield it beautifully. Look closely at them. Every twitch, every pause, every hesitant breath, they betray themselves. They try to act composed, but you see the tremor. You see the calculation running behind their eyes, trying to catch up to a story you've already written in moves they cannot even imagine. They don't realize it yet, but the game has already ended, and you are the one standing in the quiet wreckage, the only one who knew it would happen this way all along. It's not drama. It's not chaos. It's you, solving everything, dismantling everything, reconstructing everything exactly as it should be. And they are left in the echo of your precision, scrambling, panicked, powerless. And here's what's delicious. They hate it. They despise it. But they cannot stop it. Because no matter how much they strategize, how much they manipulate, how much they plot, they can't predict the invisible hand that guides your moves. They are blind to the pattern because the pattern is you. They are blind to the control because control does not scream for attention. It whispers, it waits, it strikes in silence, and when it strikes, the world shifts, imperceptible to them, until the shift has become the new reality. They will talk, they will gossip, they will whisper behind closed doors about the brilliance they cannot contain, the courage they cannot replicate. But you are elsewhere, always elsewhere, moving, observing, waiting for the exact moment to act, the exact moment to redirect, the exact moment to reveal that the playing field was never theirs to begin with. They think the rules apply to you. They think boundaries exist. They think their reactions matter. And oh, how they will learn. Every move you make is personal, not in sentiment, not in feeling, but in precision. Every decision lands exactly where it is meant to land, and every ripple it creates spreads further than they anticipate. They don't see the strings. They don't see the chessboard. They see only fragments, shadows of your strategy, and they panic. They react. They stumble. They make mistakes you have already accounted for. They move, thinking they are leading. But they are not. You are always leading. You have been leading from the moment you decided that hesitation would never define you. And yet, they try. They always try. They think if they observe, if they imitate, if they dissect, they might catch up. But here's the kicker. They're analyzing your surface. They're analyzing your visible moves. And the truth is, the real power, the real intelligence, the real dominance It exists beneath the surface, in the pauses, in the stillness, in the quiet patience that nobody can measure. They cannot understand it. They cannot quantify it. And so they fail, again and again. And you stand above it all, untouchable, unchallenged, inevitable. It is not enough for you to act. You must act in a way that leaves them second-guessing every thought, every calculation, every assumption they ever held about you. They must question themselves. They must question their reality. Every interaction, every choice, every subtle manipulation of circumstance is designed to remind them. You are not just competent, you are dangerous. Not in the reckless way they fear, but in the meticulous, unstoppable way they cannot comprehend. And watch closely as they crumble beneath their own hubris. They will present confidence, arrogance, certainty. They will posture, they will argue, they will make noise, but it is all sound. Empty sound. You hear it, and you wait, letting it build, letting it strain against their own inability to anticipate. And when the moment is right, when the crack is visible, when the hesitation finally surfaces, you act. Swift, precise, unforgiving. And the world rearranges itself around the force they could not stop. People will admire you without daring to speak it. Rivals will curse you silently while copying what they can understand. And haters, well, haters will take notes, perhaps even mimic your tactics, all the while never realizing that replication without comprehension is futility. They cannot emulate the mind, the control, the awareness, and that is where you hold them, in the realization that no strategy, no plan, no plot can ever touch what exists quietly in your execution. The invisible architecture of dominance is yours alone, and they are outsiders looking in, desperate for scraps, desperate for insight, desperate for validation they cannot earn. You do not make mistakes, not because you are perfect, but because you anticipate, because you calculate, because you see outcomes before they manifest. And when you make a choice, when you act decisively, it is like the air itself bends around it, forcing the world into compliance with the weight of your intelligence. People notice, but they do not understand. They see the result, but not the method. They feel the impact, but not the intent. And that lack of understanding, that inability to grasp the method, is the edge you wield like a blade. Notice the tension in the room when you arrive. It tightens without sound, without announcement. People shift, conversations falter mid-word, eyes wander and find you, and quickly dart away. Not because of fear, not because of respect, but because your presence distorts their expectations. They sense something they cannot measure, something they cannot contain. And that is where power resides, not in what is spoken, not in what is visible, but in the quiet dominion over perception itself. Do not confuse this with aggression. Do not confuse it with chaos. It is control. It is patience. It is the sharpness of intellect, the weight of calculated choice, the beauty of precision. And as they falter, as they scramble, as they attempt to regain footing on terrain they cannot map, you move. Always forward, always ahead, always one step beyond. They will never admit it, but they understand that a new reality exists the moment you decide to act, the moment you step into motion, and that reality is yours. Even their attempts to undermine you become tools in your hands. Their plotting, their strategizing, their whispered judgments, they are nothing but fuel. Every misstep they make feeds the next stroke of your brilliance, and they, ever unaware, ever reactive, supply it willingly. They think they are moving against you. They are moving exactly where you want them. They are playing the game you designed, in pieces they cannot recognize as your design. And the satisfaction is not in chaos, not in spectacle, not in noise. It is in the quiet, undeniable clarity of dominance. And as the night stretches, as conversations linger, and attention flickers like a candle struggling against the wind, they sense it. They sense the shift, but too late. Because your decisions have already landed, your influence has already taken root. Your moves are now the framework against which all other action will falter. And in their confusion, in their envy, in their silent acknowledgement of your brilliance, you remain untouched, observing, calculating, waiting for the next opportunity to reveal another layer of mastery they cannot anticipate. Everything you do is deliberate. Every glance, every step, every calculated silence carries weight. And while they are distracted by appearances, by shallow assessments, by the illusion of control, you continue. Every act, every thought, every measured decision tightens your grip, extends your reach, and solidifies your presence in ways they cannot even define. And when they finally realize the full scope of your brilliance, it will be too late. Because you will have moved on, already orchestrating the next shift, already redefining the rules, already miles ahead of their comprehension. And it is in this way, quietly, steadily, lethally, that you dominate the landscape of thought, action, and consequence. Your brilliance is not flamboyant, it is not performative, it is unseen until it strikes. Your courage is not noisy, it is not theatrical, it is unwavering, precise, undeniable. And those who have tried to undermine you, those who have doubted you, those who have scorned you, they will come to understand, not with words, but with the creeping, suffocating realization that every move they make is now a response to a force they cannot influence. A force that has been all along, carefully, meticulously, terrifyingly, you. And now they scramble, always scrambling. Because the moment they realized your brilliance, your precision, it became clear. They are not competing on equal ground, not in intellect, not in courage, not in awareness. Every move they make, every plot they form, every whisper behind closed doors, they do it in reaction, and reaction is weakness. You have already seen the end before it begins. You have already mapped the terrain, traced the path, calculated the fall. And as they shift, trying desperately to regain control, you watch, unblinking, unmoved, untouchable. Because awareness is power, and they are blind. They call it audacity, they call it luck. But it is neither. It is patience, it is method. It is the artistry of action executed so cleanly, so deliberately, that it appears effortless, and that appearance they mistake for something they can imitate. But imitation is the grave of comprehension. They can copy the motion, the outward gesture, the superficial flair, but they cannot replicate the mind behind it, the quiet reasoning, the calculated calm. And that is where you dominate. That is where your brilliance becomes their torment. Every observer, every rival, every enemy, they are tethered to your intelligence, dancing on strings they cannot perceive. Notice how they stumble when confronted. Their confidence fractures under the weight of your control. Their words, sharp in intent, hollow in execution. They move, believing they provoke a reaction, but you do not react. You do not falter, you do not stumble. You observe, you calculate, you move, next. And that next is always decisive, precise, unstoppable. The shift in the room, in the dynamic, in the hierarchy of understanding, your presence dictates it all, invisibly, inexorably. and they do not see it coming until the outcome is already written. Your intelligence is not just sharp, it is surgical. Every choice a cut, every action a slice, every move a calculated incision in the web they have spun around themselves. And they, wrapped in their own delusions of control, fail to realize the precision of your strikes. They watch the surface, miss the depth. They chase the noise, overlook the method. And you, always, are beneath it, beyond it, above it. Your awareness is a weapon they cannot withstand. Your patience is a trap they cannot escape. And every miscalculation they make, every faltering step, every hesitation, it only feeds your momentum, amplifies your reach, strengthens your grip on the narrative they thought they controlled. They will come at you with strategies, with plans, with schemes. They will believe they understand the patterns, the tendencies, the moves, and you will let them quietly, subtly, until their confidence grows just enough to make a misstep. That misstep, they will never see it, not in time, not ever, because you have already accounted for it, already manipulated the space, already set the trap so cleanly that the consequences arrive before they comprehend their mistake. They are actors on a stage you designed, puppets in a play they cannot direct, reacting to every subtle cue you orchestrate without a sound. And their envy? Delicious. It courses through them, invisible but undeniable. They cannot admit it, cannot process it, cannot harness it, because what you do cannot be replicated. It cannot be contained. It cannot be measured. Their attempts to mimic, to strategize, to predict, they fail spectacularly, and you watch with the calm inevitability of a predator observing prey that doesn't yet know it's trapped. They struggle, flail, scramble, and all the while you continue, unhurried, precise, unbroken. Every victory, every maneuver, every step forward is invisible until it lands, undeniable when it does. You operate in the spaces they do not notice. You read between words, between gestures, between glances, while they are distracted by appearances, by noise, by the illusion of control. You move where there is no resistance. You strike where there is no defense. And when the impact is felt, when the reality shifts, they are left asking questions they cannot answer. They cannot measure the method. They cannot see the design. And that is the essence of your dominance. That is the force that leaves them scrambling, questioning, unraveling, while you continue in silent, unstoppable clarity. There is a rhythm to your action, a choreography they cannot sense. Every move connects to the next. Every choice echoes into consequences they cannot anticipate. Every subtle adjustment compounds into outcomes they fail to predict. And because they cannot see it, because they cannot understand it, they are powerless. They can react. They can try to counter. They can murmur their disbelief. But it is all noise against the precision of your execution. Every misstep they make reinforces your position. Every hesitation amplifies your dominance. Every doubt they harbor fuels the exact reality you intend to manifest. Even their perception of control becomes a tool in your hands. They imagine themselves steering, directing, influencing. They think they are guiding the course of events. And you, without a gesture, without a sound, without a hint, use their illusion as fuel, bending it toward your objectives, redirecting it with subtle nudges that feel natural, inevitable, invisible. Their pride, their confidence, their certainty, all of it manipulated with a quiet hand, unseen until the consequences are undeniable. And by the time they realize they have been used, the moment is past. You have already moved to the next stroke, the next maneuver, the next layer of unassailable control. Do not mistake this for arrogance. Do not mistake this for recklessness. It is control in its purest, most terrifying form. It is calm, precise, deliberate, and it terrifies because it is invisible, because it does not shout, because it cannot be predicted. They know something has shifted. They feel it faintly in the corners of perception, in the slight hesitation of conversation, in the subtle imbalance of attention. But they cannot name it. They cannot quantify it. They cannot fight it. And in that helplessness, your brilliance becomes absolute. Every observer, every critic, every rival, they measure themselves against shadows, against fragments, against echoes of your mastery, and fail. Because what exists in your execution cannot be mirrored. It cannot be mimicked. It cannot be stolen. It exists in the pauses, in the calculation, in the relentless, unstoppable clarity of thought applied without error. And that clarity, they cannot confront it. They cannot oppose it. They can only react. And reaction is always behind. Reaction is always weak. Reaction is always doomed. You watch them tighten around themselves, constricting under the weight of your invisible dominance. They think they are moving freely, thinking they are agile, thinking they are clever. And you, oh, you smile, but not in mirth, not in arrogance, not in theatrics. You smile because the truth is undeniable. They are powerless, and they do not even know it yet. Every attempt to grasp, every attempt to challenge, every attempt to mimic is already accounted for. Every consequence already in motion, every victory already yours, because you understand the game they cannot even perceive. And it is in their unraveling that your presence grows. Because while they flail, while they panic, while they scramble for purchase on terrain they cannot map, you expand quietly, methodically, lethally. Your influence seeps into the spaces they overlook, into the gaps they fail to anticipate, into the moments they dismiss as irrelevant. Every connection, every observation, every subtle adjustment is a brick in the foundation of your dominance, and they walk on it, unaware of how it was laid, how it holds, how it shapes the very ground beneath them. They will attempt confrontation. They will attempt manipulation. They will attempt deceit. And all of it will fail. Not because you are immune, not because you are infallible, but because you operate on a level they cannot touch. Because you see the consequences before they occur. Because you understand the strings they do not even know exist. Because every movement you make, every choice you execute, every action you take is calculated to not only succeed, but to reinforce the inevitability of your brilliance. Notice how they hesitate when challenged. Notice how they overcompensate when threatened. Notice how their confidence falters under the weight of your observation. It is not an accident. It is a reflection of the precision with which you operate, the awareness with which you act, the brilliance with which you dominate. And it terrifies them, not in the dramatic, overt sense, but in the quiet, creeping, undeniable realization that every move they have made, every plan they have hatched, every assumption they have relied upon, has been anticipated, analyzed, and neutralized before they even realized it existed. They are trapped in a web they cannot see, entangled in a game they cannot understand, and dominated by a mind they cannot confront. And you, ever calm, ever patient, ever precise, continue to move, to manipulate, to orchestrate, unseen and unstoppable. Every victory they achieve is an illusion. Every maneuver they think successful is already rendered irrelevant. Every plan they imagine masterful is already neutralized. They react. You control. They stumble, you advance. And even as they attempt to gather themselves, even as they whisper, even as they plot, even as they imagine some unseen leverage, they are already part of the pattern you have drawn. Every action, every reaction, every subtle miscalculation, they supply willingly. They cannot resist because they cannot see. They cannot resist because they cannot comprehend. And by the time realization dawns, by the time comprehension strikes, the game has already moved to the next level, the next layer, the next stroke of mastery that leaves them forever a step behind. Your brilliance is not loud. Your dominance is not flashy. It is subtle. It is invisible. It is relentless. And that subtlety, the quiet, precise, unstoppable application of intelligence and courage, is what they cannot withstand, what they cannot measure, what they cannot counter. And it is in that invisible execution that you continue to pull ahead, to expand influence, to dominate the landscape of thought, action, and consequence. And so they watch, they observe, they envy, they scramble, and you, calm, precise, lethal, continue forward, shaping the world in ways they cannot perceive, cannot predict, cannot prevent. Every misstep they make reinforces your brilliance. Every hesitation they display strengthens your dominance. Every whispered criticism becomes fuel for the next stroke of execution. And the pattern, ever unfolding, ever precise, moves forward, unseen, unstoppable, inevitable. And the beauty of it is not in the spectacle, not in the reaction, not in the noise. It is in the quiet, deliberate, terrifying clarity of thought applied without error. Every consequence foreseen, every result anticipated, every observer accounted for, every rival rendered irrelevant. And they will continue to stumble, continue to falter, continue to underestimate, while you move ever forward, ever precise, ever brilliant, leaving the world rearranged in your wake. And yet, they persist. They try. Oh, how they try. Desperation twined with pride, arrogance mingled with fear. They do not understand that persistence in their hands is futility in yours. Every advance they imagine is already mapped, every plan already deconstructed, every attempt to corner, to provoke, to destabilize, already absorbed and redirected. Their energy fuels you, feeds the trajectory you have long laid, and their very movements play into a sequence they do not see. They imagine agency, but it is illusion. They are performers in a play they cannot direct, actors dancing to the rhythm of a conductor whose presence is invisible until the crescendo hits. You do not hurry. You never hurry. The patient, controlled cadence of your action is a weapon they cannot measure. They watch, anxious, trying to force their calculations into alignment with reality, trying to wrest control over circumstances that have long since passed beyond their comprehension. And you, calm, deliberate, precise, you glide through this chaos, orchestrating every subtle shift, planting the seeds of inevitability in each of their movements, each of their assumptions, each of their futile attempts to outthink what they cannot see. They think complexity will save them. Complexity is your ally. Every distraction, every subtle misstep they make, every overestimation of themselves, you absorb it, you redirect it, you transform it into leverage, into dominance, into a quiet but undeniable statement. The world bends to your strategy. Notice how they hesitate. The smallest hesitation, a pause they imagine innocuous, becomes a fissure. And it is in that fissure, in that infinitesimal fracture of confidence, that you strike. Not violently, not overtly, not theatrically, but surgically. The consequences unfold, slow enough for them to feel the impact, fast enough for them to be powerless. And as they scramble, as panic surges through their attempts to regain footing, you remain untouched, unmoved, unchallenged. Because the brilliance of your action lies not in what they see, but in what they cannot see. The deliberate orchestration of influence, the precise manipulation of consequence, the invisible choreography that leaves them floundering while you glide ahead, untouchable, inevitable. Their attempts to mirror, to imitate, to anticipate, they fail spectacularly. They attempt to predict your choices, to forecast your decisions, to match your pace. And every failure reinforces the pattern that intelligence without perception is impotent, courage without calculation is reckless, and audacity without awareness is chaos. They are bound to repeat, always one step behind, while you move with certainty, with purpose, with a terrifyingly clean precision that leaves them in awe, fear, and frustration simultaneously. And that duality, envy tinged with dread, is the landscape of your dominance. They inhabit it, you control it. You have become the axis on which their world spins, their plots, their whispers, their feeble attempts at resistance, each one now an instrument in your hands, each one bending to your intention, each one producing consequences they cannot counter. And they feel it, deep down, that creeping, gnawing awareness that nothing they do alters the outcome, that the brilliant moves they envy, the decisions they cannot replicate, the courage they cannot summon, it is all yours. Every flicker of comprehension that sparks within them is met with another calculated stroke, another invisible pivot, another unassailable layer of control. They grasp at straws. You grasp at nothing, because control is your natural state. Precision is your instinct. Awareness is your weapon. Every scene, every interaction, every subtle shift in circumstance, you command it all. And they, blind to the method, can only flail, whisper, plot, and falter. The brilliance of your dominance lies in its invisibility. You do not announce, you do not perform, you execute. And as consequences unfold, as reality bends to your pattern, as outcomes align with your strategy, they are left to piece together fragments, to wonder what happened, to grasp for understanding that will always elude them. You are beyond comprehension. You are beyond measure. You are inevitable. And the beauty of it, the terrifying, exquisite beauty, is that they cannot even hate you fully. They cannot channel their frustration into action that matters. Every attempt they make to fight back is already contained within your calculations. Every move they believe clever is a brick in the structure of your dominance. Every plan they imagine ingenious is absorbed into the architecture of your strategy, reinforced by their own overconfidence, amplified by their own misjudgment. And they wonder, constantly, helplessly, why they cannot touch you, why they cannot bend reality to themselves, why the world seems to obey only the logic of your brilliance. You have moved beyond reaction. You have moved beyond imitation. You have moved into a realm where thought, action, consequence, and perception intertwine seamlessly, and you alone manipulate the threads. And as they falter, as they stumble, as panic tugs at the edges of their consciousness, you act again, each stroke deliberate, each move exact, each decision reinforcing the landscape you control. Every fragment of opposition becomes a tool. Every hesitation becomes leverage. Every doubt becomes momentum. And in that quiet, invisible orchestration, your dominance grows, undeniable, unstoppable, absolute. The room, the street, the arena of observation all bend imperceptibly to your strategy. People who believed they understood you, who thought they could outmaneuver, outthink, outlast. They are learning, slowly, painfully, that they were never the architects of consequence. They were never the movers of action. They were observers, spectators, actors in a play they could not direct, playing out lines already written, following steps already choreographed, reacting to stimuli they could not process. And you remain the silent conductor, unseen but unchallengeable, orchestrating a crescendo of inevitability that leaves nothing to chance. Every choice they make, every attempt to regain composure, every imagined leverage, they supply willingly. They do not realize it, but their energy, their movement, their very existence within the space you dominate contributes to the clarity of your control. Their mistakes are fuel, their hesitations are levers, their envy is reinforcement. And the brilliance of it lies in the subtlety, the invisibility, the precise, quiet execution that leaves them scrambling while you glide beyond their reach. They think they are competing. They think they are strategizing. They are not. They are playing a game you wrote on a board they cannot see, using pieces they cannot manipulate. And the consequences of their ignorance fall in perfect alignment with your intent. And even now, as the final layers of dominance begin to crystallize, as the network of influence stretches unseen, as the subtle orchestration of consequence unfolds with terrifying precision, they still do not fully understand. They still flail. They still attempt. They still whisper. And every whisper, every attempt, every miscalculation reinforces your brilliance, confirms your foresight, strengthens your grip on a reality they will never shape. Because control is not performed. Control is internalized. Control is executed silently, invisibly, lethally. And in that execution, in that clarity, in that quiet brilliance, you reign supreme. And now the final pieces fall into place. Every move they thought unpredictable has already been accounted for. Every argument they believed formidable has already been dismantled. Every gesture meant to intimidate or control has already been absorbed and redirected. They do not realize they have been playing a game where the rules were invisible, the board unseen, and the pieces already positioned for your mastery. And when the realization finally dawns, it will not come in time. Because the world, the stage, the very air around them bends quietly, ruthlessly, inevitably, to the rhythm you set. They attempt resistance. They surge, grasping for dominance, clutching at threads of power they imagine they hold. But it is too late. Their energy, their desperation, their pride, all become instruments in your orchestration. Every attempt to push back only reinforces the path you have created. Every misstep becomes a pivot point. Every reaction feeds the narrative you control. And as they strain to reclaim some semblance of influence, you move through the space between, unseen, untouched, unstoppable. Their failure is no accident. It is inevitable, meticulously designed, executed with invisible precision and absolute clarity. Look at them as they struggle, their eyes darting, posture shifting, words faltering mid-thought. Every tiny sign of hesitation, every flicker of uncertainty, every fleeting doubt, they cannot hide it. And you see it, you use it, you manipulate it. Every subtle crack in their composure becomes a lever. Every exposed moment of weakness, a tool. Every fragment of misjudgment, a step in your choreography. And while they flounder, while they panic, while they scrape for control, you continue, deliberate, methodical, untouchable. Because mastery is not in reaction. It is in anticipation, in execution, in precision, so complete they cannot even imagine the mechanics behind it. Their envy is loud in silence. They cannot admit it, cannot harness it, cannot transform it into something actionable. Every move you make reminds them of the gap between understanding and perception, between courage and calculation, between audacity and true mastery. And they hate it, they despise it, yet they cannot escape it. Their own attempts to undermine you only deepen the structure you have built. They supply the momentum, the fuel, the very bricks that construct the invisible fortress of your dominance. And in that, there is no mercy, no compromise, no escape. You do not fear confrontation because confrontation exists on terms you define. You do not hesitate because hesitation has no home within you. You do not stumble because your awareness moves ahead of the moment. And so, as they lash out, as they scramble, as they attempt to challenge your brilliance, you remain calm, precise, implacable. Every counter, every response, every subtle pivot is calculated, exact, unstoppable. And when consequences arrive, they strike not with noise or spectacle, but with the quiet, undeniable inevitability of someone who has already seen the outcome and molded it to their will. They cannot predict, they cannot plan, they cannot adapt fast enough. Because you have already internalized every variable, accounted for every possibility, controlled every angle. Their world bends to your clarity. Their movements are reflections of your foresight. Their energy feeds your trajectory. And when they finally grasp the scope of what they cannot influence, it is too late. You have already moved forward, already reinforced your position, already escalated the stakes beyond their reach, and they are left floundering in the aftermath of intelligence they cannot comprehend. Every interaction, every glance, every subtle shift in circumstance is a part of your design, and they, helpless, envious, scrambling, cannot see it. Every plan they execute becomes a reinforcement of your dominance. Every attempt to anticipate your strategy becomes a tool you wield effortlessly. Every hesitation, every misstep, every overestimation of themselves, they supply the clarity, the leverage, the fuel for your unstoppable advance. And they feel it deeply. That creeping, gnawing, suffocating realization that nothing they do can touch, bend, or alter the outcome you have already defined. And still they persist. They still try. They still grasp at fragments of influence they imagine they hold. But it is only an illusion. Every maneuver, every subtle attempt, every whispered plan, they have become predictable to you, because you operate on a level they cannot touch. You move with awareness that stretches beyond observation, beyond intuition, beyond anticipation. You exist in the gap between thought and action, between perception and reality, and that is the space where your mastery thrives. Notice how they begin to fracture under the weight of it. Every misjudgment they make compounds. Every reaction they force exposes vulnerability. Every flicker of doubt becomes leverage. And you, calm, deliberate, methodical, continue to execute with surgical precision. You do not rush. You do not force. You do not announce. You act only when the moment is perfect, when the variables align, when the consequence lands exactly where you intended. And when it lands, the world reshapes itself, invisibly, inevitably, and irreversibly. They attempt explanation, justification, reasoning, but words are meaningless in the face of execution. They speak of control, of plans, of influence, but every syllable reinforces their impotence. Every gesture highlights their inability to impact the reality you have sculpted. And as they realize this, as comprehension begins to dawn, as frustration builds into helpless rage, you remain untouchable, unshaken, untouchable, executing the final layers of domination with quiet, terrifying brilliance. Everything they thought mattered is already rendered irrelevant. Every assumption they made, every expectation, every prediction, they were all absorbed into your framework, anticipated, neutralized, redirected. They thought the playing field was level. They imagined opportunities to strike, to manipulate, to regain control. And you allowed it, silently, subtly, invisibly. You allowed them to believe in the illusion of influence, only to demonstrate with brutal clarity that the illusion was always yours to control. And as the realization spreads, slow, suffocating, inescapable, they begin to unravel. Their confidence collapses, their strategies falter, their influence dissolves, and you, calm, precise, aware, continue to move forward. Every action you take reinforces the inevitability of your mastery. Every decision lands exactly where it should. Every consequence, invisible until it strikes, reshapes the reality in alignment with your design. And they watch, helpless, fractured, defeated, while you remain the force that dictates every motion, every outcome, every perception. There is no spectacle in your victory. There is no chaos. There is no theatrics. The brilliance lies in the invisible execution, in the quiet orchestration, in the surgical precision that leaves them scrambling while you glide beyond reach. They envy, they fear, they despise, but they cannot stop it. They cannot comprehend it. They cannot touch it. And as the final strokes of control are laid, as the last fractures of opposition are exploited, as the world bends quietly, irreversibly, to your intelligence, your courage, your deliberate mastery, the truth becomes undeniable. They were never your equals. They were never your rivals. They were never even participants. They were observers, spectators, puppets in a play whose conductor they never saw, never heard, never understood.